Hi everyone, Coach Sipho here, and today's tutorial is for those who feel like
I know how to play the opening game stage. You simply control the center, develop pieces and castle. But what do I do in the middle game stage?
this is the problem that the majority of chess players are facing. It's easy to study the openings. One could study the opening of his or her choice. For example, you could study the Rai Lopez if you love it. You could study the Caro-kann defense, the French defense, the London opening, and so on. The same is true with the end games. You can study them one by one. For example, you can study how to checkmate with two rooks, how to checkmate with two bishops and the king, how to win the king and the pawn end game. You can study them one by one. But how does one actually study the middle game and play it well? This course was created exactly for that. After completing this course, you will be able to play any middle game, even if you haven't seen it before. You will play it with confidence and you will be able to win most of your games. So without any more delays, let's dive into it. There are three main plans in the middle game stage. 1. You could attack opponent's king and try to checkmate it. 2. You could attack opponent's pawns and capture them. 3. You could try to improve your pieces or deprove opponent's pieces by pushing them back. In short, on the third plan, you are trying to make your pieces more active than the opponent's pieces. Now, an attentive student might ask,
how do you know which plan is best in a particular position?
That's a very good question. Now, the first thing you need to understand is that there are 5 types of centers. Number 1, the closed center. Number 2, the open center. Number 3, the static or fixed center. Number 4, the hanging pawn center. And number 5, the dynamic center. Okay, now let me show you how these 5 centers look like. I bet you've seen them in your own games. Starting with the closed center. You get the closed center from openings such as the French defense, Caro-kann defense, and so on. For example, in the Caro-kann defense, white plays e4, black plays e6, d4, d5. Now, if white pushes the pawn, this becomes the French defense advanced variation, and we call this the closed center. The closed center is when the pawns in the center are blocking each other and they cannot advance. That is the closed center. You get the static or fixed center from openings such as the Rai Lopez or the Cuscio piano or the London opening. For example, after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, this is the bishop c4. This is the Italian or the Cuscio piano opening. This is the static or fixed pawn center. The difference between the closed center and the fixed pawn center is that the pawns in the fixed pawn center are not completely blocking each other, like in the closed center. These two pawns are blocking each other, but the other two pawns in the center are not blocking each other. They could still advance. Whereas in the closed center, we can see that all the 4 pawns are blocking each other. So all these 4 pawns are blocking each other. They cannot advance. But in the fixed center, 2 pawns are blocking each other and the remaining 2 pawns can still advance. Sometimes you could have a fixed pawn center like this, where these 2 pawns are not even present. Let's say this file is open. There are no pawns at all here. So it will also fall under the fixed center because the center is half closed, but it is not completely closed. The next type of center is the open center. And this center explains itself. An open center is when these 2 pawns for both sides have been captured. Okay, now let's go to the hanging pawn center. We can get the hanging pawn center from many different openings. For example, we can get it from the Grunfeld exchange variation. For example, after pawn d4, knight f6, pawn c4, pawn g6, knight c3, d5. Now this is the Grunfeld defense. If white takes, this becomes the Grunfeld exchange variation. Black will take 2. After this move, this is the hanging pawn center. Hanging pawn center is when one side has 2 pawns in the center and the other side has no pawn in the center. Or let's say this pawn was here, but the pawn did not move 2 squares. Only one side has 2 pawns that moved 2 squares, and the opponent has no pawn that moved 2 pawns, or maybe it moved 1 square. This is the hanging pawn center. The dynamic center is when the center is not yet clarified. For example, it could change anytime to any of the 4 centers we've already discussed. There is so much to learn from these types of centers, to an extent that I felt like each one of them deserves a lesson or a video of its own. Otherwise, this would be a very long video. These different types of centers act as guidelines for which plan you should go for in a particular position. So after learning all these types of centers in detail, you will be able to play any middle game position, even if you haven't seen it before. But that middle game will fall under one of these 5 types of centers. You will be able to play all these middle games, even if they come from openings you don't know, and you will start winning most of your games. So this was the introduction of the Art of Middle Game course. So on the upcoming videos, we'll break these different types of centers down and make it easy for everyone. Thanks for joining us on this course. I guarantee you this is one of the biggest decisions you've ever made. Make sure you won't miss these lessons when we break these centers down by smashing that subscribe button and click the bell so that you will be notified. Until the next lesson, peace.